Is the straying away from religion, in a sense, in ritualism, energy and rhythm. Everything is made of energy, period. There is no good or evil in actuality. Everything is neutral. It is only our thoughts that label circumstances as evil or good. Everything is electromagnetism. This is what energy and rhythm represents and expresses as its theme, electromagnetism. What the fuck? I wonder when the hell I wrote that shit, yo. That's funny. That's crazy. Electromagnetism? I don't even know I was including this in my project, man. Electromagnetism. I got it. Electromagnetism. What the hell does that mean? Is that metaphysics? The truth. Oh man, yo. Alright, so let me try to explain energy and rhythm. Energy and rhythm is lemniscus, me defining my own reality. It's me living my dreams. It's me you know, let me just tell you straight up. It includes UFOs, aliens, you know. The best way for peace to come on Earth, I believe, is for an outside threat to come down, threaten the human species with its nefariousness or its eclectic, otherworldly beingness that will scare the fuck out of us, because we're like, what? Aliens? What the fuck? What? You know, like, I mean, like, civilized alien beings, like, civilized in the sense of being advanced, not civilized as in being pacifistic, or whatever, though we would hope they would be pacifistic. But we know that, you know, whatever alien beings can come reach Earth are probably more advanced than us. But I also believe that there's alien beings out there that are less advanced than us as well, you know. I think we're somewhere in the middle ground, but I think honestly we're towards the lower middle ground, not the upper middle ground, because we're so fucking self-destructive still, in a sense, you know. Entropy, this world is going through entropy. Our Earth, our world, and the various parallel realities. You know, on the mass conscious level, I believe, until we overthrow some of these governments, until the governments are the representations of the people, right? So until the governments start to act in a positive and constructive manner, I believe that signifies the state of our affairs, because people are content under the governments by which they are ruled under. And you know, if they're not challenging their governments per se in an uprising manner, then these governments are continuing their ways. And of course we know the ways of the world, you know. Just turn on the news and you see what's happening in the world. Johnny Mack was a Harvard psychiatrist who began doing stories about, not stories, who began doing research upon which broke through the scientific method, which was why he ended up getting blackballed. And unfortunately he died by a drunk driver in London back in the early, somewhere in the 2000s. I forgot what year exactly. He did research. He came across Carl Sagan at some point. He thought, this is crazy. These people think they're being abducted by aliens. He didn't really believe in it. He said, okay, let me take a look into it. I don't know. One thing led to another. He took a look into the research. He put his full life, his full mode, his full concentration and focus over the next few years of his life into researching the stories of folks who had been abducted by aliens. Okay. By the way, this is John E. Mack. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner before he began researching aliens. A Harvard professor, Harvard psychiatrist, Pulitzer Prize winner. That's a very well-regarded prize for authorship. He was awarded such accolade, the Pulitzer Prize, for writing a book about a biography about T.E. Lawrence, who is also known as Lawrence of Arabia. It's a very famous movie. So Johnny Mack did research on T.E. Lawrence at some point in his career, and he wrote this great book. I bought the book. I haven't read it. It's about like 300 or 400 pages, I think. And that's what gave him, you know, a high stature among the academic world, if you will, when he won the Pulitzer Prize for such publication. Based upon, I think the basis of the book is about the psychology of T.E. Lawrence, studying T.E. Lawrence's life, in a sense. His background, his childhood, his family matters, unto who he became as a young boy, then an adolescent, then a young man, and how he became who he was, and what his philosophy on life was, and you know, how he developed himself to later become the great general / military leader that he was when he fought with the Arabs against the Brits. So yeah. So eventually, as we see, Johnny Mack begins doing research. Girls and guys from the first world to indigenous tribes, Johnny Mack was researching. They were formulating his case studies during this time. They were sharing stories consistent throughout time. These UFO abductee stories, you know, these stories were coming from witnesses of sound minds, because he's a psychiatrist, so he did tests to ensure, based upon the scientific rubric, of course, that these people are not delusions, they're not mentally incapacitated, they're people of sound minds. And you know, these aliens, extraterrestrial beings who were paying visits, and some of them were doing abductions as well of these human beings. These alien beings were visiting folks of different ages, you know. Some of them were kids, the REL kids from the REL school. This is a school in Zimbabwe. In many documentaries and many newspaper articles and studies have been formulated about this. A spaceship with 3 Greys, alien beings, hybrid beings I believe, came down and visited a class of about 50 young kids. They were between the ages of like 5 and 7 or 5 and 8. And they paid them a visit, and 3 of the alien beings, and they communicated with the kids, some of the kids, and the kids of course were hysterical. They started screaming and yelling and everything, you know. And the teachers, of course, they were, I don't know, the teachers claimed they were, when they interviewed the teachers, it's all on YouTube, just Google REL school children, aliens, a bunch of stuff will come up. The teachers were, you know, in the break room, they were chatting amongst themselves. I guess there was no chaperone out there. Eventually the teachers heard the kids screaming, and the kids transpired what the alien beings were telling them, you know? What the message of the alien beings was. And essentially it was, one of the messages was that you're destroying Earth. All of the pollution that's happening and the way that humans are living on Earth, they are self-destructing the Earth. Our environment is disintegrating, you know. And that includes, you know, the ice caps melting from global warming to pollution and trash, and even to nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapon developments of armaments. Because such has a huge impact not only on our world, but such nuclear weapons also affects the atmosphere of the world we live in. You know, it has an effect upon the lining of the Earth's atmosphere. What do they call it? You know, the Earth's protection layer. So, and not to mention with the pollution, the gases are filling the sphere of where we're living, you know, thus global warming, whereupon the heat of the sun is coming in, but it's unable to escape due to such layering of pollution from, you know, cars and factories and fossil fuels, that the heat is unable to escape, so it's becoming trapped in Earth in a sense, you know, and such heating is actually causing buckshot effects upon the meteorological, you know, hapstances of weather and the seasons. Not to mention planets also have an effect on Earth, so we're also including the macro effects upon Earth, planetary alignments in the orbit, and how big planetary bodies are actually, with their momentum and their gravity pull and their energies, also affect weather the same way the sun, or the moon rather, is able to affect the tide of the ocean. You see, this is all interconnected. Subhanallah. So yeah, they pay us visits, these aliens, repping God's image in a sense, that we're all one and the same in the eyes of aliens. They're visiting folk of different ages at different times during different stages, you know, from years back to now. At different times during different stages in social placement. You know, blacks, whites, rich people, poor people, students, teachers. Many people, hundreds of thousands I think, have been abducted. Johnny Mack focuses on he wrote 2 books on it. One of the books is called Abduction. That focuses on case studies he did. And I think it focuses upon like maybe between 5 and 15 case studies, I think, is included in the book. I read the book, but I forgot exactly how many case studies he included in the research. But he definitely did research on more than 30 people. I know that, like his Harvard research. I'm not sure how many he included in his book per se. And he also wrote a second book called The Passport to the Cosmos, which is significant. Ooh. In Energy and Rhythm, that's one of the books that really inspired the theme and concept of energy and rhythm. So the same way I used JFK, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rachel Corrie, Mandela, John Lennon in these speeches for my Epitome Perennial project, in the same way I use, you know, Charles Manson and the kids, and Ted Bundy and Hollow Dreams. I'm using John E. Mack in his studies, as well as a very unique message from an otherworldly perspective. I'm using that in Energy and Rhythm. So now let me get to this point. Let me just finish this. They come in social placement, you know, visiting folk of different ages at different times during different stages in social placement. Take it as a sign from ice caps melting to our environment disintegrating. They come to warn about our slipping. gases fill the sphere of where we're living, and they too are becoming victims. So that's exactly what the aliens kind of, you know, spoke to the kids. And you can see it, just get on YouTube and check it out. And there's also a documentary being made about this as well. The documentary is like called The Ariel Phenomena. It needs more funding. You know, if I was rich, you know, I would donate $10,000 bucks, $50,000 you know, just so I could see this project complete, you know. The project focuses on the Ariel Phenomena, the school event, and it speaks to the kids. It includes clips of the kids back in the day. I think this whole phenomena happened in the 80s or the 90s. I think it was in the early 90s or the late 80s. They speak to the kids now. Like when the kids grew up, they became teenagers, obviously, at some point. And, alhamdulillah, you know, it spoke to the kids. They spoke to the kids, again, to see what they thought about such phenomena, how, as they grew and aged, what they made of the experience, you know. So I think it's very important, very powerful. This message is very powerful for many, many reasons. One reason in how it relates to epitome perennial is in the fact that, and it also relates to the outro of Charles Manson. If you hear Charles Manson, he speaks, let me just whip it out real quick because I forgot where he speaks it, but it's part of Charles Manson's formulation of his organization he came up with in prison called ATWA. I think it's air, trees, water, something. Subhanallah, you know. And it's included in Silver Lining. You know, I had to include it in Silver Lining, of course. Very powerful, you know. Dope.
Do you think that this world, San Quentin, has any relation to the world outside?
This world, San Quentin, is where all the children of God are. This is where you keep all your children that you don't want. The ones that you get to carry the heavy load.
You understand? Children of God. This means before they're conformed, these criminals are doing things from a place of freedom, if you will, away from conformity. And you know, society goes against the grain of people who conform. Society harshly judges people who do not conform. And you see it, man. I see that on the UVA campus, yo. It's in one of my rhymes, in fact, you know. Walking by the kid at UVA. I aim for the stars, some sob cause life is hard. I put it into song, call it the work of God. Getting hit with shade, walking by the kid at UVA. Hated on cause we don't relate. They see me arrogant, I just see myself as great. I just stay in my lane, get to class, don't be late so you can get the maze. Hey, complicated relations created tensions with the dating. You know, it's hard for me to relate to a lot of these girls, man. These fly ass girls who I wanted to, you know, get to know and shit. They looked at me and, you know, they asked, what's your job and blah. You know, it's like, if they see something different from their path in life, they're not very, you know, easily open. That means they're conformed, you know? They're conformed. So, sorry, let me just finish this. I hope I don't interrupt this too much.
I just talk natural on the right way, man. I told you, see, nothing I do is right, man. Unless I stay in a cell. They crowd me and I got this little space. My life is bigger than this little space. I live in the desert. I live in the mountains, man. I'm big. My mind is big. But everybody's trying to crowd me down and push me down and make me into all these little things that they need me to be. And that's not me at all, man. That's not me.
Isn't this an act right now?
What isn't an act? What isn't an act?
So you put on act.
Are you an act?
Sure, so are you.
All right, then.
So we're all an act,
Well,
right?
what isn't? The only thing that isn't an act is when someone gets killed. And then it isn't an act because people's fear sees it as being real. So the only thing people see as real is fear. So if the people in the underworld are knocking people people in the underworld that want you to see that I am very real, and I am on this planet Earth, and I am moving for Atwa, my air, my water, my trees, and my wildlife, in every way I know how, in every way I can.
See, that's what I mean. Atwa, that's the same message of the aliens in a sense. You see?
I don't live in that world you live in. I wouldn't, I don't have nothing to do with that world.
That's the brilliancy, the beautifulness of fucking the justification of Charles Manson's perspective, you know?
These guys are in prison. I'm not locked in dollar bills. I'm free, man. I'm free.
It's powerful, man. It's a beautiful message he has.
Spiritualism scares you people because you've got this little stereotype church that you're buying and selling, and you're trying to put God in a building. But God is much bigger than that little church. And spiritualism is a lot more than they...
Sin and grace, yin and yang, all one and the same, baby. God is much bigger than just the church.
When you see real, that's the part of me that they hate. Because they don't like you when you see real. Because they don't like to really be seen. Because most people like to hide the real, because the real is always what gets hurt. The real is what we don't understand. The real is, what we push under the baby. We put it over by the baby and leave it. The real is difficult. The real says this: surrender, give it up, every bit of it. I want it all. One world. That's the only way that we're going to survive. One world government, one money, one computer, one Zoom, one prison, one person, one.
Those of us who have been so much influenced by violence in the media, in particular pornographic violence, are not some kinds of inherent monsters. We are your sons and we are your husbands. And we grew up in regular families. And pornography can reach out and snatch a kid out of any house today. It snatched me out of my home. It snatched me out of my home 20, 30 years ago. And as diligent as my parents were, and they were diligent in protecting their children, and as good a Christian home as we had, and we had a wonderful Christian home, there is no protection against the kinds of influences that are loose in the society.
They need criminals, man. They need people to lock up in cages. If they didn't have people to lock up in cages, man, they wouldn't be able to sell more fear to the public. If they sell more fear to the public, and all the old women they love to buy that fear, they just lay back and watch that fear and read it.
So yeah, I think
What makes the knife or knife the shooter shoot? Society, the reflections of a child. Life should...
that's reflecting, Columbine, what makes a knife or night a shooter shoot? Society, the reflections of society.
I think that you are an evil person.
It's how...
I'm evil. I'm terrible. Yes, I am.
It's how, like I mentioned previously, how we begin to almost have a battle within ourselves based upon society disliking us for conforming and us for wanting to conform. No. Society disliking us for wanting to not conform. Us hating ourselves for having to conform. You understand?
Society, the reflections of a child.
It becomes almost like a dynamic creation of self with, society. The matrix, whatever you want to call it. Now listen to this.
Why shouldn't people be scared by you? There's only one person you can be scared of, and that's yourself. I think that you are an evil person. Right, I'm evil. I'm terrible. Yes, I'm awful. I'm awful. You're a murdering dog. Oh, I'm a terrible dog. I'm a fiend. You're a mass murdering dog. I'm a mass murdering dog. where did you get these ideas?
I guess the evidence.
But does it pay you to say that more? I mean, if I paid you to say the other way, would you walk backwards?
I don't walk backwards.
Well, you know, it's kind of
I
silly.
never walk backwards.
It's kind of silly. You read a newspaper and you look on TV and then you come and you see me and you want to call me what they told you. And you know that 99% of that newspaper is for money, not the truth. You know that. When they're selling...
What don't we understand?
You don't understand yourselves.
No, but what don't we understand about you? I grant you we don't understand ourselves, but what don't we understand about you?
That's what I said. I'm inside of you, man. I live inside of you.
You see, that's wrong. You see how there's no empathy from that news anchor, and that shit hits like fucking ABC nightly news, and you know it's wrong, yo. Anyways, and again, I'm not justifying Manson's acts, you know, the destructive acts of having killed the actress, and she was pregnant at that time, and they killed her husband too, and they also killed another woman, I believe. They killed like 3 people, plus the baby inside. You know, that's destruction. That's bad. That's not good, for sure. So, yeah, let me finish this real quick though. So, essentially, you know, you guys can hear the rest of that obviously at another place, but at hollowdreams.com if you want to. Yeah, you gotta get that puzzle piece in there, you know what I'm saying? Oh. So yeah, you know how Reagan said at the UN speech back in the 90s, I believe, or it was also George Bush, I think he said it, the UN speech. They both said it's gonna take, and you can find this on YouTube as well, you know, it's a very famous speech. They both said it's gonna take, maybe it will take an outside force to come to Earth to unify Earth, you know? And that's exactly the message of what the aliens, that reflects epitome perennial, right? A unified Earth, unity, peace, and love amongst humans so that we can come together as one. That's a great starting point, right? That message of the environment and the betterment of society for our own selves and for the cosmos as well is coming from the aliens, you know, from the abductionees stories and the transcripts about their experiences when they were in contact with such extraterrestrial beings. And that too linearly parallels with Manson in his message regarding Atwa, as you heard. Yeah, this, you know, this, it really falls linear with each other in quite a dynamic and holistic way, if you will. So such is what makes the alpha to the omega, is the energy and rhythms. And the aliens are such a catalyst toward such unification. As crazy as it sounds. Don't take it from me, take it from 2 presidents of the United States. Take it from the extraterrestrials themselves, who obviously are much more advanced and evolved than us if they're coming to tell us to stop destroying the earth, for we are destroying ourselves. You understand? Yeah, that's the crux of the theme of Energy and Rhythm. It's to bring light, to educate about Johnny Mack and what his message was and what his research consisted of. And I'm sure there are a lot of abductionees out there who will relate to this project, which is a special thing. You know, the demographics for Hollow Dreams would be thematically for those who feel, you know, stuck, the young people or the people who are even, you know, 30s, 40s, who are just like, they're discontent with their life path. You know, they feel like life has more to offer. There should be more fulfillment in life, and you know, they feel a bit stuck. You know, and of course, Epitome Perennial. That audience is all of us, from Manson to the kids to me to you. We all, you know, I think we all wish we could just, you know, have less evils in the world, you know, because the evils knock us off of the evils knock us off of our own stride, you know, our own good step, you know. I mean, from the ego to materialism to lack of wanting to show our vulnerable states, to lack of being able to self-critically and constructively yet truthfully look at our shortcomings in the mirror between ourselves. Yeah, it's important. So the message of Johnny Mack falls in line with Manson, and Manson's essence and source of his message surely falls in line with the God aspect, universal message of the people whom we prize the most, who are the leaders of the people. John Lennon, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and what they stood for, you know, Rachel Corrie. The epitome perennial stature, you know. So that's how it relates. That's the linearity of the themes of the projects, the concepts. Now the lyrics are a bit different as well. The lyrics for Energy and Rhythm are much fluid, so if people don't want to look into the depthness of the concept of Energy and Rhythm, cool. My lyrics are very easy to comprehend, less poetic than how they were with Hollow Dreams and Epitome Perennial. They're less poetic. They're more aspirational, so more relatable to the hip-hop culture, more relatable to mass appeal in society on the whole, you know? I mean, I speak about manifesting my dreams. It reminds me